Hello. I feel like with Conor McGregor, Wade fight for the lightweight belt as if Khabib no longer had it, or if Khabib's opponent had to pull out, but Khabib still wanted to put on a show for his fans and people, the contract for Conor McGregor ending up being the only option handed forward. For sure, if for some reason someone else had the belt, all Conor would have to do is wait. They would eventually take it, anyone except for Khabib would eventually take that fight, because most fighters, starting from the bottom, struggling to provide for their families or even themselves, for so long, thinking about the potential of monetary relief a McGregor fight would provide. Just think about that. At the end of the day, these men are prize fighters. They would take that fight. If not for themselves, they would for their families. A scholarship for your kids, a car for your wife, a new house for your family. They would take that fight. I feel the difference with Khabib is he cannot be bought. Money is very low on his priority list. His motivations would always have to be something higher than money. For him, I would believe first would be God, then his family, then his people, providing for them not with material goods, but with legacy. This is a common theme for Khabib. He fights for legacy. He wants to be a symbol for those close to him, his people, his religion. Think about it this way. After going through a grueling, ruthless training regimen, a grueling weight cut, also he can dismantle a game opponent. After all of that, if the man says he just wants a burger with double cheese, some juice as his reward, that's how he's going to enjoy himself. After all of that, he's a man of simple tastes. His rewards come spiritually. There's a reason why he still lives with his parents. The material world is very low on his priority list. So, if I were to think practically, I know any fighter except for Khabib would take a fight with McGregor eventually, even if they denied it first, because the thought of compensating their families materially would eventually have a pull too strongly correlated to Conor McGregor. I think Khabib's closest contention for the belt is Tony Ferguson, but to know who will win that bout, I have no idea. I'm not in a position to know how that bout will translate, there's just too much I don't know, but hypothetically, if Tony were to win, I believe he's said Conor's name way too many times not to take a bout with him. The financial motivation paired with his long history desiring a bout with Conor McGregor, I believe would innately have that bout come to fruition. But if Khabib retains the belt, I see only two ways Conor can compete for it. Someone pulls out and only Conor McGregor is offered, or win a few fights, let his brand dominate social media the way it always has. He would likely mention the foot injury in an inflammatory manner to speed up that process, but even then, I think waiting to see what happens during or after the Ferguson bout would be the best window, but that's just my opinion. That said, with the possibility of a Poirier fight, let's take a glance at their last bout and derive what would happen differently. This was definitely a very different bout for both of them because both of them are southpaw, thus the philosophy of how they fight would naturally change. We could actually reverse the footage to make it appear orthodox versus orthodox, as the philosophy would now be the same. Conor McGregor's stance, of course, bladed, very wide to emphasize in and out movement, his hands lower, which leaves him ready to gauge distance but also leaves space into a counter in case of Dustin's advance. Dustin standing very orthodox square. He often keeps his hands lower. Instantly, Conor recognizes Dustin trying to circle away from the power hand. Spinning hook kick to exploit Dustin's use of boxing ring generalship. Very cause and effect. Conor has a reason for every strike he throws. This time, throwing the hook kick, Dustin was encircling, thus with the low kick, has kicked Conor McGregor off his posting leg. Conor eating a shot on the way back up. As he recovers, Dustin sought to throw another low kick. He perhaps sought to punish Conor McGregor's wider stance. We do talk a lot about how Conor uses a bladed stance, but he also uses a more orthodox one. Here, watch how his hands are up, his feet are closer together, and his body is not bladed. This looks more like a boxing stance than it does a karate or taekwondo. From here, he checks the kick by stepping out, which still absorbs more of the shock than a traditional Muay Thai check, but the trade-off is, if you keep your footing, you can catch the kick, then return with a counter. Because a powerful low kick usually throws the same arm down as a counterbalance, it's usually free entry to the face. If you can catch, absorb, then counter against it. This is why Jose Aldo stated he stopped throwing his signature low kicks. He noticed people were looking to catch them, thus the trade-off just was not worth it. Leaping lead hook to enter the pocket with his own shot. Even from this angle, you can see how much telegraph Dustin Poirier had in this blow. Instantly, Conor McGregor uses a cleaner Celtic cross, which, when paired with his significant reach advantage, beats Dustin to the punch. Boom, touches him and leaves the space like a phantom. He has Dustin's respect. This is part of Conor McGregor's game. It makes you feel very limited in this stand-up. With his reach advantage and keen sense for distance and timing, he manages you with the threat of a counter. This is why his opponents always end up on the back foot, despite Conor's hands being down. With your focus on the threat of a straight left, he simply fires with everything else to re-establish respect for his other techniques, which naturally opens up window for his left hand once again. The following three crosses are very important here. Notice how Dustin is guarding with his hands up. Southpaw versus orthodox. This would have been a little different, as by securing the outside foot with mixed martial arts gloves, you have a cleaner line down the middle, which makes it harder to guard. Conor McGregor makes the read. Another spinning back kick to pull attention low, then watch. He changed the arc of his punch. It's a looping long-range hook. The telegraph of the punch is compensated for by Dustin habitually guarding for the straight left. Look how he loads up the punch, his arm is to his side. Then he whips it around like he's pitching a baseball. That had a lot of power behind it. Notice how from here he does not spam it. He doesn't want it to be too obvious. Conor McGregor throws a straight to the body.
This one here, we exchange left hooks. Boom. But look, he wobbles. Look at him. He's like Bambi.
Look at Dustin's reaction here. He does not know how to adjust. Because Conor shifted away from the straight left, he's abandoned his guard. And he's trying to avoid this shot by extending his arm versus a significantly rangier fighter. Once again, clean against side of head. This blasts Dustin Poirier back. Conor McGregor starts stalking his prey, cutting him off, increasing the pressure he's experiencing while he himself remains calm. Watch out when he steps into space. He uses that karate footwork to leave the moment he catches Dustin trying to time him on entry. Meanwhile, he adjusts to always be facing his opponent. Conor McGregor makes it very hard for you to focus on his left hand. If you do, he'll clip you with something else. As he steps in, Dustin seeks to counter with a duck overhand, but Conor knows his range, and he sees the punch a mile away, pulls it, then as he re-enters with his lead, his incoming cross ends up only glancing off of head. But as he walks in, talking to Dustin, hands down, the first jab has Dustin flinch. The second has him curl up and prep for the left. He's truly worried about the punch incoming. Like a whip, in comes a fully loaded hook against Dustin's defensive reaction. Boom. Connection somewhere around the medulla oblongata or occipital lobe. Dustin becomes unresponsive. The lights just go out. Now, clearly Conor McGregor's attributes alongside his sheer IQ and skill advantage completely controlled Dustin, which innately handed Conor McGregor the openings as he progressed. You can see how he truly approaches this game like a scientist. But now comes the question, how would the rematch outcome differ? Weight cutting does give you a size advantage, with the residual myonuclei also giving you a strength or physical advantage, but the dehydration shrinks the brain, which means there's more of your brain surface area smashing into skull wall every time you take a punch. This makes people who endure large weight cuts, sure, physically stronger, but simultaneously more prone to concussion. This is why Dustin has been able to take so much more damage at lightweight. Dustin, he can now endure full-out wars with no signs of breaking. This means he will be more composed after eating each punch. Either way, he's still very much a brawler, very unorthodox in his striking technique. Through sheer force of will, he makes it a dogfight, winging hooks which blast you off your own position to fire back. Versus Max Holloway, we saw just that. Even though Max had a significant technical advantage, Poirier made it very hard for Max to build up his momentum. He just kept smashing him not only off his rhythm, but also off the footing he needed to volume strike. Dustin has a lot more power at this weight class. That said, Conor McGregor hits significantly harder than Max and still has the reach advantage. Jumping into his reach could mean eating that Celtic cross along the way. The question becomes, what happens after eating that cross? Well, that's a matter of how much space Conor McGregor has and if Dustin can even eat the shot without being knocked or stunned by the momentum. It's hard to say the exact outcome. I think it will be more competitive than the last bout, as Dustin will be able to eat more damage, thus the outcome will revolve more around Dustin's ability to make it a fight versus Conor's precise punching power. I think everything else will look very similar to their previous bout. After all, Dustin was a very dangerous striker then as well. It's just the damage he was taking was not with the damage he was dealing. Versus Holloway at 145, the weight cut would make all the difference the same way it did for TJ Dillashaw versus Cejudo. Size and strength advantage, but you feel horrible and your brain won't be able to deal with the trauma the same way. It's the double edge. For every advantage, there's a disadvantage. What are your thoughts? I'd like to hear them in the comments below. If you'd like to stay elevated, please subscribe and hit the notifications. Thank you if you did. It truly does up the channel. Thank you. Smash the like button if you enjoyed. It's good karma. And until next time, peace.